ain't going back. Not gonna buy into all that. Hey, ain't gonna hide. Gonna let all the fears slide. Got mother nature, it's on my side. Got all of the loving.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the New Now. I'm delighted to have a first-time guest on, RJ Spina. We've chatted, virtually through emails for many years, back and forth a little bit here and there. I'm very familiar with his works. He is here to talk about his new book that he's just relaunched, Supercharged Self-Healing, and more besides. RJ, hello.
Hi, Lorenzo. Thank you for having me. It's my
Yeah.
pleasure. I'm glad we finally get to talk live.
Me too. Like everything in its time, synergy always seems to work out. It seems like it's a perfect time for what you're sharing and what you've been sharing for years. So perhaps you can, bring us into your book a little bit. Let us know what you mean by supercharged self-healing. Sounds like a great place to start.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I guess the context, Lorenzo, would be that I guess now it's a little over 6 years ago, which is hard to believe, but a little over 6 years ago, I became deathly ill. I was literally told I only had 48 hours to live from severe sepsis. Due to the infection, it literally crushed my spine, and I was permanently paralyzed from the chest down. I was simultaneously diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, Hashimoto's autoimmune disease, hypothyroidism, pancreatitis, thyroiditis, and also suffered from something called autonomic dysreflexia. Now, autonomic dysreflexia can occur and often occurs with paraplegics and quadriplegics who have had an injury anywhere above T6 within their thoracic 6 vertebrae within their spine. And the major infection was T7 and T8 for me. So I was left with emergency life-saving surgery where they performed something called a laminectomy. That's where they literally scrape off the infection off your spine to hopefully prevent any more spreading of it. Now, I was already permanently paralyzed from the chest down, and there's a video on the homepage of my website where you can see the MRI of my spine. You can actually see the surgeon's notes, and you can actually see what it was like at that point. Now, if we fast forward for a second, Lorenzo, I woke up the next morning from emergency life-saving surgery. I was already still permanently paralyzed from the chest down and very, very, very sick. Now, the easiest way for me to explain this, as bizarre as it sounds, I awakened into what I now totally tangibly understand as true cosmic consciousness. As I awakened, I literally remembered how self-healing actually works. And I started to explain right there in the ICU to the ICU nurse how I was going to put myself back together. I literally outlined the metaphysics of higher consciousness in terms of self-healing, explained the whole thing, and I then predicted to her, and all this is verifiable, I then predicted to her that in 100 days, I would literally be able to walk unassisted, and I will have no more sickness, disease, illness whatsoever. Now, in that video on the homepage of my website, I knew what I was about to do. I also knew, Lorenzo, that if I didn't videotape it, no one would believe me. So anyone who doubts wants to verify this story, all you have to do is watch the video, because there is a video of me, and it is time-stamped of me literally unparalyzing myself. And there are snippets of the MRI of my spine, the surgeon's notes, and you can see the actual process of me putting myself back together. And based upon that higher knowledge, that authentic cosmic consciousness, that then became a book called Supercharged Self-Healing, which teaches everyone how to put themselves back together no matter what the situation is. And really, since that day, I've literally been teaching self-healing and the higher consciousness metaphysics of self-realization or enlightenment to people all over the world. And here we are today.
Here we are. Well, how did you find yourself in that situation in the first place? Like, what happened in your back area?
So according to doctors, they have no explanation. Somehow I had gotten an infection, and it literally spread everywhere. It was into my bloodstream. Normally at that level of sepsis, you die. It's quite lethal. And I was literally told I only had about 48 hours to live. So, but I was also told I was permanently paralyzed. I was also told that there's no way to recover from these chronic diseases or chronic illnesses. But when we have a different understanding of things and we do different things, we get different results. And that's what the book is all about.
Well, maybe you could walk us through some of the initial steps and what it was like, how you, you began and the challenges that maybe came.
Yeah, for sure. And Lorenzo, as you and I both know, I've been writing articles and doing this kind of work really for a very long time. And I do want to preface some of these understandings in that as a child, without effort, certainly without training, without teaching, at least not from this lifetime, I would literally just leave my body. So it was quite natural for me to what we call astral project and experience all these different realms, these different states of being and states of consciousness. So I knew as a child tangibly that I am spirit or consciousness or whatever word you want to use. So I've never actually had to wrestle with that or had to even try to figure out how to experience these higher states of consciousness or different realms. And throughout the course of my life, there's been various stages, if you will, of deeper levels of self-awareness. And so, and as you know, I've written articles where you and I have talked about different things over the period of time, but something did occur when I woke from emergency life-saving surgery. We like to joke that what occurred was that it was now RJ 2.0 in that all of my abilities and understandings, things like clairsentience, clairvoyance, claircognizance, and a deeper understanding of things, it's literally like my whole processing system had been replaced with a more advanced version that has better processing and a greater depth of understanding. And so that's what really occurred upon awakening from life-saving surgery. And it's through that state of consciousness or state of being that I was able to put myself back together. And that brings us back to the book. So, and I just wanted to give some kind of preface because it's unusual. The whole thing is unusual. It's also completely and utterly true. So let's start, Lorenzo. I think the foundation that I think everyone needs to start to work with is that they need to understand what I call the ego mind identity. Okay. Now, people have been talking about the ego or talking about the false self or the shadow self, right? It goes by many names. Okay. I just simply call it the ego mind identity because I think it's a more holistic and deeper understanding of this human character that we create upon reincarnation. Now, without me going on and on, because our conversation will turn into 3 hours if I don't sort of keep this concise. Okay. So because of the experiences I had as a child, I understand what I am in the sense that I know that I'm spirit. So what does that really mean? It means this body, okay, we are not this body. Think of this as a spacesuit or a vehicle, okay? Now, when we reincarnate from much higher frequencies and dimensions and we come all the way down into the lower frequencies of the physical universe, we actually lose consciousness. Hence, we get here. We don't know who we are, why we're here, what our life plan is, what we're supposed to do. So instead of remembering and knowing, we create a story, we create a character. That's the ego mind identity, the human character that we create through our identifications. The foundation of the ego mind identity is identification with the body. We believe that we are a physical being. Now, that alone makes healing nearly impossible because even what seems to be physical is still energy vibrating with at a certain frequencies. Now, if you see things as physical, in your mind, it's going to be impossible to transcend it or rearrange it. Okay. That's part of why we've lost touch with self-healing is because of the ego mind identity and the identification with the physical form. In the beginning of the book, Lorenzo, they're probably even the first, honestly, I don't really remember, but I think it's about the first 20 pages. I go into specific detail about what the ego mind identity is and how to start to deconstruct it. Okay. Now, once we start to lose identification with the body and the thoughts, and we start to realize that we're something that exists prior to that, and something that exists much deeper within this physical form. Once we get that space, that detachment, that gives us room to work.
Mm.
And once we have room to work, what I did was I just developed a series of exercises. You could think of it as inner Tai Chi and moving energy. So all I've really have done is used vibration, frequency, energy, which Tesla talked about and realized as well. It's the same thing, except we're doing it internally. But it's through detachment from the physical form, from thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations that we can change our frequency, alter our vibration, and channel energy and move our energy in a way that actually puts our physical form back into proper function. That's the shortest way that I can answer. The book goes into far greater detail, but we must work with the truth. We are formless. We are free. We are unconditioned. And this is a suit. And when we operate with the truth, we can do anything with this suit, including putting it back together.
Yes, I would agree, of course. So from that point, right? So someone sitting here, let's say, and there might be some viewers that have some physical ailments. I know I've talked to a few, and they've had their challenges healing themselves and becoming whole, or getting over whatever it is that they're sitting with. What would you feel could be the first blocks to look at that can help you jump? Like, I agree with you. I mean, I've also had experiences since I've been 4 or 5, studying Edgar Cayce when all the other boys were doing sports, and, looking at the Akashic records, etc., and watching some of the having those same or similar out of body experiences. But how about people that haven't had, let's say, the pleasure of that background?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we all have to start somewhere, right? Okay. So the first place that I would start is meditation. Okay. So I like to say that what we really are, the self, is meditation, because what we are exists prior to thinking, prior to emotionalizing, prior to the body, and therefore prior to human experience. Now, I've also worked with so many people over the last 6 years that the one universal thing that I hear, Lorenzo, is that, RJ, I can't meditate. I've tried and tried and tried, and
Right.
they have.
Yeah.
They have. They've tried this, they've tried that. They got the headset, they got the chimes, they got the crystal. I get it. I totally get it. Okay. And the reason why it's difficult to meditate is because of the low frequencies that we're in. It creates a kind of stupor-like effect, which is actually what thinking is. Okay. So it produces a state of thinking, a state of confusion, because we're in such low frequency, such a dense environment. Okay. Now, what I've developed that's in the book are what I call magic tricks. Now, Lorenzo, when I say magic, I mean magic with a CK, not magic with just a C, like pick a card or 3-card Monte.
Right.
I'm not talking about that magic. Okay. I'm talking about real magic. Now, I make no bones about it. I do high-level magic. Now, what is magic? Magic is metaphysics. Magic is accessing and utilizing the energies that exist outside of physical sensory perception.
Mm-hmm.
That's what magic is, and that's what metaphysics is. So let's sort of cast aside any weird aspersions that we have when we hear the word magic with CK. It's metaphysics. And when we operate with the higher mind, we have access to this, because the physical senses can never reveal the one true concrete reality. So the first thing that we can do for people that are just starting, having a problem mentally, emotionally, or physically, by the way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the so-called problem is, and it doesn't matter. All can be put back into balance. Okay, we are immortal creators, and all is energy. That's number one. Okay, so let's do a magic trick right now, and this is where I think everyone can start. Okay, the starting point is meditation, which is total clarity, non-thought, and complete stability in terms of emotionalization. So in other words, we can just think of like a body of water that's totally calm, no ripples. Okay. That is an analogy or a visual that we can look at in terms of meditation. We always want to be clear-headed, and we always want to be completely calm and present. Okay. Here's a very simple magic trick that anyone can do. And I don't care how hard you've struggled to meditate, you're going to be able to meditate in 1 second. Okay. And that's why it's real magic. Okay. So this is all you have to do. And the book, by the way, is filled with these things. All right. So Lorenzo, let's do it because it's the easiest thing in the world. Okay. These two eyes, your physical eyes, right? Okay. Literally pretend that they're not connected to your brain. You can't think.
It's true. You do go out of focus, so to speak. Yeah.
You literally can't think.
Interesting.
Right. Okay. Now let's look at just this. Let's look at the paradigm shift here. Okay. What is one of the biggest struggles human beings have? Meditation.
Yes.
Can't do it, can't do it, can't do it, can't do it. Okay. Now, in 1 second, not only can you meditate, you can't think. Two eyes floating with no brain attached. Instant meditation, instant clarity, instant calmness. That is real magic. Now, that is the starting point because it breaks the spell of the ego mind identity. It literally breaks you right out of that spell because trust me when I tell you, if Merlin were alive today, he would simply say that everyone is under a spell. Okay. And I would absolutely agree. And that spell is the ego mind identity. So two eyes floating with no brain attached breaks the spell of the ego mind identity and puts you into an instant state of meditation. From there, Lorenzo, the book outlines a series of exercises and protocols that, believe it or not, are just as simple as what we just did, that are so profound and so effective that literally people can't believe it when they start doing it because it's so simple, but the truth is simple. And so that's the starting point. Everyone needs to learn how to just be present in an effortless way, because when it's effortless, we can maintain it. If we're straining and struggling, we're going to get tired, and eventually we will capitulate and give up. So these teachings allow you to stay this way in an effortless fashion.
What do they do next? So let's say they've learned to meditate, they're there, they're in the, timeless state of numb thought, which is obviously a good place to start for healing. And then what happens, or what would you suggest they pursue after that point?
Okay. Great question. Okay. There's a couple of things that we can do from here. When I work with someone one-on-one, the first thing is I teach them a magic trick or two so they can learn how to totally be calm, total meditation, no problem. Okay. The second thing that I normally ask when I'm working with someone is that I ask them, what is it that you're specifically trying to achieve? Okay. So I'll give two examples. If I hear someone say to me, RJ, I just want to get better. Okay. That's not specific.
No.
Okay. We can't work with that. I can't work with that. And neither can you, because that's not specific. Right. I want to feel better. In what way and how? Right. Okay. So that's not an answer that is actionable. Now, I'll give you an example of an answer that is actionable. My pancreas is having a problem and my blood sugar is too high. Okay. So specifically, we want to heal the pancreas and lower, diabetes, probably most likely, right? Okay. So it's specific, right? Okay. So the first thing is meditation. The second thing is, what specifically are we trying to achieve? And the more specific, the better. And I'll get into that. Now that we have something specific, what we're going to start to do through the teachings of the book is we're going to have what I call a single pointedness of focus.
Okay.
Right? So think about it this way. By having a single pointedness of focus, we're going to bring all of our higher mind and all of our energy to one single thing, because we've now been specific. That specific goal or agenda has a far greater chance of coming to fruition or reality because all of our attention, all of our focus, and all of our energy is going to that one thing. So when we start to work just with that, we got a far greater chance of healing the pancreas or getting rid of cancer or overcoming, because everything is directed to that one thing, right? Just like if you focus all day long on cleaning your room or whatever the hell it is that we're doing, that goal has a far greater chance of coming to fruition because you've spent all your time and all your energy on that one thing, right? You didn't stop and, oh, let me do this, and let me do that, let me do this over here, let me do that. That room never gets cleaned. Okay. Healing works partly the exact same way. Now, this energy that we're going to use, which we're going to get into next, this is the same energy that we use to think, to emote, and to animate our body. So everyone has access to this. We just normally squander it in thinking and emoting and doing all these things that actually don't lead to healing, right? So again, let's come back, single pointedness of focus. Okay, so we've learned how to meditate. We've asked ourselves, what is it specifically that I'm trying to achieve? We're now going to start working with a single pointedness of focus. Okay. The next thing that I often teach people, and then I'll stop rambling because I know I'm talking a lot. Then the next thing that I often teach people is an exercise that I call channeling intelligent energy into the body. Okay. That may sound all woo-woo and all. It's not. It's very simple, and its foundations or its roots actually come from Reiki. Okay, if we took Reiki, which was literally, by the way, the conception and inception of Reiki is millions of years old. Okay, so if we took the conception and inception of Reiki and multiplied its efficacy by about 1 million, that's where we get the supercharged self-healing and the ascend the frequencies healing technique. Okay. So channel intelligent energy into the body. What does that mean, and how do we do that? And by the way, someone just put a video up, and I reposted it on my Instagram, of doing just this from my book, and just watch what she says about what happens when you do this. And it's right on the Instagram. Okay. So what does this look like? The briefest way to explain is that most people are familiar with the chakra system. Okay. If you're not familiar with the chakra system, in a couple of sentences, your chakra system are energy transformers and metabolizers that actually keep our form and function intact. It's not food that does this. That's a misconception. You can go long periods of time, and I have, without eating and without drinking. I'm not advocating that. I'm simply saying it's possible when you work with yourself properly. It's the chakra system that is outside of our physical sensory perception. Some of us can see it. I'm certainly not the only one. The chakra system takes in energy and all these various frequency levels. The chakra system is what gives us our form and function. Now, what we want to do for healing, okay, we want to open up the crown chakra, which is also associated with enlightenment. That's why the halo, we see all those pictures of Christ and Buddha and Saint Germain with a halo. Right? The halo is really the artist's rendition of a fully open crown chakra, which is reminiscent of enlightenment. And that crown chakra can be used for healing. Okay. So what you want to do is just realize that there's almost like a cone, very thin when it gets to your head, and then it opens up in like a funnel about 9 to 12 inches above the head. Now, that chakra exists for all of us, and that chakra is always taking in energy. We just don't realize it because we're so detached from these kind of things, and we're immersed within the physical body and the ego mind. Okay. When you're really detached, you can actually experience these things directly. Okay. So all we do is we open up the crown chakra, which is not difficult to do. And when you open up the crown chakra, and the book explains everything, you open up the crown chakra, and then just like a waterfall, standing underneath a waterfall, and you have all that wonderful water hitting you on top of the head, by opening up the crown chakra, actually all you have to do, because it already exists, is the energy. Imagine a waterfall of energy. Command it to come to you. Command this waterfall of energy to come right down into your crown chakra. And this is tangible. When we wear like a baseball cap, like you got on, and sometimes it's a little tight, or after a while, when you take the cap off, you feel that difference on your head. It's almost like your head can breathe. When you open your crown chakra, it's almost like someone removing your skull cap. And so when you start to command that energy in, it's tangible. Now that energy that exists in that frequency is far more powerful, and because it's a higher frequency. The energy, what I call intelligent energy, when that starts to come in through your body, through your crown chakra, without you doing anything else, that high frequency energy automatically harmonizes and heals lower frequency disharmony or sickness or disease, which is lower frequency disharmony. So that's literally medicine. High frequency energy is medicine. And I promise you, this has been taught for a long, long time. I'm just reintroducing it. So all we're going to do is bring in that intelligent energy right through our crown chakra and let it literally flood our body. And it is tangible when you do this. And if you want to hear someone talk about it who did it, like I said, go to my Instagram. She literally just did it and is talking about she can't believe what starts to happen when you do this. Now that one step, Lorenzo, it's part of, there's 7 steps. That's part of exactly what I did to put my permanently paralyzed body back together, and a body that was also ravaged with chronic disease, sepsis, and illness. High frequency energy heals and harmonizes low frequency energy. So those are the 3 things that I normally start off with. Magic trick, what are we trying to achieve? And then we go right into bringing in energy into the body, and people start to feel different immediately. That's a good way to start.
So I have 2 questions, I guess, that have come up in this, which is interesting. One, I would like to circle back a little bit to focusing on cleaning your room that you kind of equated at the time, or maybe you didn't equate, but we were also talking about diabetes. So obviously you could sit all day long and intend cleaning your room. If you don't get off your bum and start cleaning your room, the room's not going to get clean, right? It's, no matter how much you meditate, the room's so number one, I would say, let's say someone does have diabetes, where does the actions that brought them to where they are, the actions that dirtied their room, come into the equation in this, in relation to what you've said, besides the meditation part, the actual, get up and stop eating sugar, for example, or put your dirty laundry in the hamper, 2 easy examples to look at in this. So I would like to look at that. And I might as well bring up the second one. I do need to bring in the higher energy, shall we say, parasites that a lot of people know exist or talk about existing. If people are opening up their crown chakra to the energy of the universe, to be aware of the possibilities of, shall we say, the good and bad that could enter at that time. So those are, I guess, I know 2 very different ways of looking at things, but I would like, if you don't mind, to chat about those a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Great questions. Okay. We'll work in reverse, just because that question you just asked is at the forefront of my mind. Okay. So absolutely, that parasitical energies, astral entity, they're absolutely real. And if people don't know that, they just are unaware it's real. Okay. I can see them. I've removed entities. People call this, when a priest does this, it's a, possession, and they do an exorcism. Okay. If you don't view it from a religious perspective, all you're doing is removing a parasitical astral entity. It's the same thing, by the way. Okay. And they're real. Anyone who doesn't know that, well, then they just have to wake up to the fact, or open their third eye and you'll see them. Okay. So how do we prevent this is a great question.
Yes.
All right. It's through intention.
Okay.
Okay. It's through intention. So when we open up the crown, when we open up the crown, our intention is to channel higher frequency intelligent energy. Okay. Our sentience, our command, our intention is what affects energy, right? Just like me sending the command to raise my hand, I'm raising my hand, right? Okay. Everything works this way. Everything works this way. So if the intention is clear, the intention is pure, the intention is direct, it really can't be messed with. It's very hard for someone to mess with my intention to raise my hand, right? It's very difficult. Okay. Healing yourself and bringing in high frequency energy works the exact same way. It is your intention. And when your intention is clear, your intention is pure, and your intention is direct, it really can't be messed with. So that's how you do that. It's when you're in this vague, amorphous, hey, is anybody out there? I want to connect with these. That's when anything can come in. But when you're specific, direct, and the intention is strong, very difficult to be messed with. So that's how we address that. Okay. The first part, Lorenzo, another good question. What about all the actions that led up to the room getting dirty, or to having the diabetes, right? Okay. What I have discovered tangibly and with other people, that, believe it or not, all disharmony comes from disharmonious thought patterns. And then eventually those thought patterns trickle down frequentially, and we have the tangible experience of that. Just like Buddha says, what you think you become, which is very accurate. This is the same thing. This is just my weird way of saying it. Okay, so all disharmony comes from disharmonious thought patterns. Okay, now by addressing the meditation, the ability to be present and shutting down the thinking mind, we have now started the process of transcending the egoic mind, which is in constant state of needing something, craving something, wanting something. So it's by working with that is really the key to start to overcome all these disharmonious thought patterns, which lead to disharmonious emotional patterns, which lead to disharmonious actions, which lead to disharmonious behaviors. Because the order of creation, as I understand it, is desire, intention, thought, emotion, action, and behavior. So what you do at the desire and intention level will then dictate what you think about, what you emotionalize over, what actions you take, and what behaviors you develop. So if we work at the desire, I want to heal, we harness the intention, which is our energy, our will. Everything that we think, emote, take action on, and develop habits will be in complete accordance with our desire and intention. So this is how we start to begin to overcome the habitual patterns of dirtying the room, or reaching for the Reese's peanut butter cups, or whatever it is. This is how we start to overcome it. It all starts with being able to be present, which allows us to transcend the egoic mind, which is simply a conglomeration of disharmonious thoughts, emotions, actions, and behaviors. So that's how we start, by learning to be present and then focusing in the right way.
So the detox that would have to come, I would guess. So let's say we're going to go back to diabetes. Someone's been eating McDonald's and sugar and what have you. So they have, lots of parasites already in their body from that, right? Physical in their guts, so to speak, whether it's candida or what have you. So they're sitting there, they want to heal. The challenges are coming with, let's say they've read your book and then half an hour later, they're having those crazy cravings. Even if they want to heal, obviously they have to walk back, I would say, through the patterns that brought them to where they are, right? I mean, obviously, if they had, 20 years, like I went through a sugar addiction, I could say, no doubt, right? I was raised on it. And, I had to go to bed for 3 days when I stopped. I had a horrible flu-like experience before I came out of that. Now I feel sick when I look at sugar instead of feeling like I want it, right? But those feelings come from my guts. I've noticed as well, when we're talking and you're talking about bringing higher energies and intent, you're always pointing to your midsection, which was interesting, because when I first came to Japan, in the old way, when they asked, North Americans where they thought they would do this, when they asked Asians in the old style where they thought, they would always point to their middle section, their second brain. So the reason I'm bringing these 2 points up is, so we're talking to, let's say, a Western viewership mostly, that are going to be watching this video, and they've meditated and they want to get over diabetes, or, fill in their own blanks, what they need to get over. So they have that challenge. Okay. So they've calmed themselves. It's a great exercise, the floating eyes, we'll say. And then, they've got some focused intent, heal my pancreas, get over sugar, what have you. And so then the cravings are going to come and the monsters are going to bother them. Obviously, the thought patterns, because it's not, you and I both know it's not as easy. It's not going to happen in 1 minute. It's going to take an effort of maybe, it took me years to finally get over my sugar addiction fully. And I still face it, right? Every day I hear the thoughts, have some sugar. I just tell that voice to get lost now. But, I go, get out of here. I don't want your sugar. Leave me alone. So next step, let's say, maybe we're going to deeper into this book, or we're going into your second book, but how would someone ascend their higher frequencies and get their higher consciousness and put all that together in relation to bringing all these points together? Monsters floating, addictions, their body, like, let's say they're already 250 pounds and they should be 190 pounds. I'm paraphrasing. So then all of that fat, let's say, because we're going to go back to diabetes, is full of the garbage they've already put in their bodies, right? And they have to allow that detox process. There's no easy steps. So how would they, in your opinion, start to address all of this beyond, the scope of what we've talked about so far?
Yeah, another great question. Okay. Without me rambling for 10 minutes. So let's look at detoxification, since you said that, right? Okay. Most human beings, because they associate themselves with their body. Okay. And that's why when most people think of healing, they think of physical healing. Again, that's the misidentification with the physical form. That's part of the problem. Okay. So when we talk about detoxification is not just what you eat. In fact, it's far from it. Detoxification has to do with the thoughts that you have. Detoxification has to do with the information that you're putting your attention upon. Detoxification has to do with staying away from low frequency emotions. Detoxification is it's only a fraction of it is what you eat. And that's why people struggle so much. They think detoxing is just what I drink and eat. No, it's not. Detoxification goes much deeper than that. What you drink and eat is a product of your ego mind. So when we want to transcend these things, we have to address the ego mind. So we need to detox from impure thoughts. We need to detox from impure emotions. We need to detox from impure actions. And then the impure behaviors will disappear. Everything starts prior to where we tangibly realize it. That's part of the issue here and why it's so challenging to be a human being, because unless it's within the field of vision of our 5 physical senses, we don't even know what's occurring. Okay. When we work with ourselves in the way that this book outlines, we are going to be working with ourselves in a more accurate and holistic way as it regards the soul or the spirit or the consciousness or the sentience or whatever word you want to use. I don't care. Physical detoxification is the last place, and believe it or not, the least effective. The most effective is when you work directly with the mental body and start to cleanse yourself of disharmonious thought patterns. When you cleanse yourself of disharmonious thought patterns, those emotional imbalances start to disappear as well. When the emotional imbalances start to disappear as well, the physical cravings are barely a ripple within that water. And once they have been reduced to a ripple, which is probably in some ways what you've done with yourself through your discipline, now when you get a craving, you're like, nope, not doing it. Nope, I'm not. I'm just not doing it. Get lost. Okay. What I want humanity to understand is that we can't work from the physical. We have to start prior to the physical. We have to work with what has given birth to the physical. And everything happens within your mind. Everything happens within your mind. So when we address the mind will affect the emotions, and the emotions will affect the body. By addressing the mind first, by one, being able to meditate in an effortless fashion, there's no disharmonious thoughts. It's not there. Eventually, the emotional body completely subsides. You become calmer. And believe it or not, when we start to master this, cravings, and I mean it because I've done it, cravings will disappear. You literally won't have them. Now look what we've done. Now we have truly detoxified ourselves. And look how we did it. The last thing was food. The last thing that we addressed was food. This is how healing works, Lorenzo. That's why addressing the body through Western pharmaceutical driven ideology doesn't work.
No kidding.
Most of us know this. That's why we're seeking out acupuncture. We're seeking out Reiki. Start to seek out the Ascend the Frequencies healing technique. This is actually how you operate in terms of your own higher consciousness. Address the mind, the body will follow. And I'll say it in one sentence that's very clear. Whatever conceptualized reality that we create for ourselves, the body then has the tangible experience of that. That is the mind-body connection in one sentence. Now, most of us realize if we're stressed out, freaking out, whatever, right? We make ourselves sick. We stress ourselves out. We make ourselves sick. Most people now know that. And that's absolutely true. Lorenzo, the other side of that coin is also true. So in other words, if we actually create an expanded state of consciousness, the body has the tangible experience of that as well. And that is how healing works.
So how would you address, let's say, old style Japanese people that thought in their middle when you're saying everything's in the mind? Okay, that's a connection I would like to make, because I find myself not thinking here anymore. I find myself thinking here. Now, I used to think here. And when I moved it to my heart center or my guts, my second thought, I've heard we have a second brain in our solar plexus in our area in the middle here, our heart, if you like, or below. So how would you put all of this together for someone who stopped already thinking here and is here and still needs to do some healing, let's say?
Yeah. Okay. The connection between what I'm talking about and some of these traditional understandings, especially from that area, they're actually completely simpatico. All right.
Okay.
So yeah, which is also, it's not interesting. It's just part of the truth. Okay. So let's look at it this way in terms of what I've tangibly discovered within myself and through my own higher consciousness. Okay. Lorenzo, what we really are, okay, we've used the word soul, spirit, consciousness. Okay. That's fine. Okay. In the book, I explain this in detail. Now, the soul it's not accurate. Okay. I'm going to give you what it is that I experienced directly. What we really are, the soul is two components. Okay. Two. And this is part of why we've lost the ability to heal, because we think it's one thing. It's not. Okay. What we really are is sentience. Now, sentience is a divine intelligence. Okay. Now, don't associate intelligence with thinking, because thinking is the opposite of intelligence. So when I say thinking is not knowing, that's why we think, because we don't know. Okay. Intelligence is knowing. All right. So what we are, sentience, that's what we actually are. It's a divine intelligence. And from a human perspective, it is our level or amount of our love and wisdom. And the subsets of love and wisdom are talents and abilities. Okay. That is what we are. That is the direct fractal of God. That is the I am. If we've heard that term, the I am. Okay. That's what it is. Okay. And that's what all of us actually are. We are this divine intelligence, or this I am, this atom of God, this fractal of God. And this is universal. Okay. The second aspect of this, and this really gets to the heart of what you were just talking about, is that this divine intelligence, this ultimate creator that we all are, being a fractal of God, the ultimate creator, right? This ultimate creator, this I am, the second component is energy. All of us are given energy to create. Now, when we're human or having a human experience, this is the energy that we use to think, to emote, to animate our body, and thus create experiences. Okay. Those are two separate components. Just as the painter is not the painting, we are a creator, not what we create. It's very just like we're not our thoughts. If we were our thoughts, when our thoughts pass, we pass too. Yet,
right.
Okay. Now, where it gets even more, we'll use the word interesting, where it gets even more interesting is where this is located, because this gets just to the heart of what you're talking about, Lorenzo. Okay. Now, I'm not the only one that can see this, but I can see these things clearly through my own authentic, whatever you want to call it, cosmic consciousness. Okay. What we are, the sentience, the divine intelligence, when incarnate, sits between the heart and the spine. Okay. It literally sits between the heart and the spine. The head here, okay, is just a transformer that interprets sensory perceptions. That's all it does. And therefore, we have misappropriated intelligence being in the head. The head is a receiver, like a radio. And just like there's no musicians in your radio, there's no actual sentience or intelligence in your brain. It just receives the information and gets transcribed, and then a reality is then projected. Okay. I might have said that too fast, but that's how that works. All right. So what we are, the divine intelligence, the sentience, sits between the heart and the spine, which is why whenever anyone indicates themselves, where do they point? The center of their chest, and they go, me. No one ever points to their head and goes, me. That's because there ain't nothing up there. Okay. Now, the second aspect of this, so the sentience is between the heart and the spine. Now, the Holy Ghost, if you will, or our most precious commodity, energy, which is what we use for everything, sits just beneath the belly button and above the groin. Okay. And lots of literature in your parts of the country talks about this. This is well known because it's true. Okay. So we sit between the heart and the spine. The energy sits between the lower belly. And that's the association that now look at that area.
Mm-hmm.
What are we now talking about? The second brain, are we not?
Yes.
That exact area is what we're now calling the second brain. Now, from my perspective, it's not the second brain, it's the brain. That's where it all takes place. This thing just transcribes sensory perceptions and projects a reality. That's all it does. The actual intelligence is sitting between our heart and our spine.
Right.
And the energy that we use for everything sits in the lower gut. And that whole area is actually where and what we really are.
So how do you connect then opening up the crown chakra to let the energy in for healing with the fact that the majority of your energy, as you said, and I agree, sits in your center?
The crown chakra is, if those familiar with this, or even if you're not familiar with the chakra system, the crown chakra is the highest chakra associated with the physical form.
Okay.
So to be able to bring in the highest frequential energy, or what I call intelligent energy, we have to open up the chakra that is operating at the highest frequency level that is associated with the physical form. Now, the solar plexus and the heart and the throat are not the highest frequency chakras associated with the physical form. So therefore, the more potent and powerful energy in terms of healing and repair exists where the crown chakra is, or the seventh frequency band. By opening the seventh frequency band and opening your crown chakra, that energy is more powerful and more potent. That is the energy that you want to bring in to heal and harmonize your mental, emotional, and physical well-being.
And where does love come in?
Well, love is the summation of all wisdom. Okay, from my perspective. And love is unconditional. Now, when we start to look at our interpretation of love, a humanistic interpretation of love, often it's quite conditional. You do this for me, I do that for you, and we have a working relationship. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because there isn't. Okay, but that's not love. Love is unconditional. And unconditional means there's no expectations. Okay, everything is born from that vibration. And the further you get away from that vibration, the more disharmony you experience. So that's really what love is. Love is the summation of all wisdom, because everything is born from that specific vibration. But the first step, if you will, the first step away from unconditional love is wisdom. It's a total understanding of things. I shouldn't say total. Wisdom is a depth of understanding of things, and it's only one step removed from love. But as you get further and further and further away from that original vibration that creates all, that even gives birth to wisdom, is when we start to experience more and more disharmony, because we're getting further away from the core of things. And now look at ourselves. The further we get away from love, look how we feel, look how we act, look how we speak, look how we behave. Look what we do to ourselves. Look what we do to each other. Look what we do to this planet. Look what we do to animals. Look at it, right? The further you get away from our core. So love is the summation of all wisdom, and it's by working with ourselves properly. And hopefully this first book is true teachings in terms of how to actually do this. No more wondering, how do you do it? How do you do it? Well, now you know. Now it's up to you. And as we work in this way, the life changes. And part of what changes is our own healing and our own self-realization.
I hear you. I would say a key point is to keep an eye out for the monsters. That's just my opinion. Those fifth dimensional entities that, the thing that, let's say, I see as a challenge, and I'm just talking from a personal perspective, is opening up this area to healing. And in my understanding, it's where those parasites live, above, in your thoughts, in your mind, in your process, right? Inside between your ears, basically. I hear the voices all the time that tell you to do horrible things, nasty things. We'll just say unloving things. And of course, that is, as you open up that area, right, more for the uninitiated, let's say, like somebody sitting and listening to your book for the first time, those monsters are going to show up probably because they don't want you to heal, right? Is that addressed in your first book at all? Or is there something like, because I see that as a stumbling block for not being led, like not as a stumbling block, let's say it's a challenge for keeping towards, you mentioned of the healing process, the monsters that may stop that.
Yeah. Okay. So one way that we can look at this is that a soul that is awakening is unstoppable.
Okay.
Okay. Completely unstoppable. And now let's really let's delve a little bit more into these astral entities. Okay. And I've worked and removed astral entities from many people, and there are actually testimonials on my website that have actually done this. So I'm well versed with this. Okay. Astral entities cannot sustain themselves. They're parasites. Okay. So they need a host. So really what this means is they're quite weak. They are quite weak. Okay. So, and that's when we talked about earlier, Lorenzo, when the intention is strong, there is nothing they can do. There is absolutely nothing they can do whatsoever. And that's why what is depicted through religious scripture, if we start to look at this, look what defeats these possessions is true faith, right? Exhibited by the priest or, whoever's doing it, whatever. It's true faith. The power of the truth, the power of faith defeats all. And it doesn't matter what it is. And I can tell you firsthand, astral entities, do they exist? Yeah. Are they powerful? No, they're absolutely not. They need you to exist. They literally, that's what a parasite is, obviously, right? They need a host. So by having clear intention and not being afraid, they can't touch you. They literally cannot touch you. And those that operate, we'll say with true faith or with true self-realization, those that are truly anchored within themselves, they know tangibly that they cannot be touched. So part of what attracts astral entities is the low frequency vibration of fear. Okay. It's like blood in the water for sharks, right? Okay. So these astral entities only feed on low frequency energy. Okay. They feed on fear, anger, lust. They feed on resentment, jealousy. They literally feed, and I mean literally, they're parasites. They literally feed on low frequency energy. Now, when we're rooted with ourself, into ourself, as ourself, by ourself, for ourself, that is the supreme vibration. They can't feed on that. It's beyond them. They can't touch it. In fact, they are repelled by it. They can't go near it, literally. So now when we start to, put these two things together, when we're operating authentically, you can't be touched. You just can't. And like I said, I am well versed in these practices and done many of them. So when you operate authentically, clear intention, you cannot be harmed. You cannot be messed with. They may think about it, but there's nothing they can do. They can only feed on your own fear, your own distrust, your own jealousy, your own rage, your own lust. They can only feed on your own disharmony. And by working with these teachings, you're working properly, which means there's nothing for them to feed on.
Good advice. Perhaps we've come full circle in our conversation, it seems. You've given people a lot they can start with. I know I brought up some hard topics that I've had to face over the last 20 or 30 years. And I understand, although you could meditate, let's say within a second using some magic tricks, I would say, the intent of unbending will, determination, and let's say never giving up is something that has to be developed, of course, through repetitive actions and a lifetime. I mean, obviously, you're still doing it, and you had your problems. How many years ago did you get over your spine challenge, did you say?
A little over 6 years ago.
Right. So obviously you've been writing about it, you've been sharing, you've been teaching, you're on your second book, as you mentioned before we get on, or you finished your second book and you're on your third book, or you're about to get on your third book. So you've been nonstop, let's say, in your intent and dedication and actions towards healing. This happens to be your path, right? You're writing a book, you're sharing this information, you're helping people through your efforts. And I would say for anybody walking that or looking that, we all have a different path, but I definitely feel, how would you put it? Like unbending intent towards healing is required to stay.
Absolutely. So we often make promises to ourselves, to kind of sum up, Lorenzo. And it could be as mundane as I'm going to clean out the garage today, or whatever it is, totally mundane things. Okay. But I want us to look at this because this is so important.
Okay.
These things are not beyond anyone's reach. I promise you. Okay. My self-realization is simply a mirror of your own enlightenment. When you look at me, you're seeing your potential to do these things. Okay. So we make a promise to ourselves. I don't care what it is. I'm going to clean the garage today. I'm going to clean my room. Okay. Keep your word. I'm going to explain why. Keep your word. Okay. By keeping your word or not keeping your word, because we often just justify, I'm too busy. I'm too tired. I should do this instead. Okay. When you suffer these little defeats to your will, when you say, I'm going to do it, and then you don't do it, okay, you are suffering a defeat to your own will. Now, what happens is, after a while, you have gotten so used to defeating yourself that when a real challenge presents itself, you are already defeated. It's because we are used to capitulating and giving in and defeating ourselves and defeating ourselves and defeating ourselves. So, as what's the saying goes, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Okay. I think everyone, if you start to make a promise to yourself from this day forward, after watching and listening to this, I don't care what you promise yourself. I don't care how simple it is. I'm going to wash the dishes. I'm going to do, I mean, something that you know that you can do that doesn't require anyone's assistance. Make a promise to yourself tonight or tomorrow and follow through. What we're actually doing, okay, is far more important than we realize. Forget the human perspective. Understand the truth. What you're actually developing is willpower. Willpower makes the soul more tangible and pliable under any circumstance and allows the soul to overcome any challenge by developing the willpower. One of the reasons why I was able to put my body back together is because of an unbreakable will that I have developed through incarnation after incarnation after incarnation. Now, by working with yourself in this way, you too will develop an unbreakable will. And since our will is our energy, which is what we use for everything, the most important thing to develop is your willpower. So everyone, make a promise to yourself that you're going to clean your room, do the dish. I don't care what it is. Make a promise to yourself and do it. And start to develop formidable, indomitable will. And when you do that, nothing can stop you.
Amazing. I would agree 258.5%. That, you know, I think we've come down to something that I was alluding to through the whole conversation. And I'm happy we came to this conclusion that without your will, without your power, you know, you can't succeed in continuing on with your healing, right? You just slip back towards, you know, eating the candy bars or whatever. So RJ, this is amazing. I'm happy to get this out. I'm delighted to share it with our viewers. I would be equally happy to have you back to delve into some of these other topics that we skirted upon that seems to me would require another hour or so of talking to properly tackle. And, you know, I feel from what you've shared so far, I have no problem recommending your book and what you're sharing and your website and some of the works that you've done. And by all means, start easy, develop willpower, continue on. Don't forget your love and authentic love, you know, not the needy kind. I strongly feel you put it all together. People like RJ, and there's so many out there. I've been saying that for years, and I'll say it again. If you want to heal, there's nothing but ways to do it. There's nothing but advice. There's nothing but structure. There's nothing but ways that you can succeed if you have the will to do so.
Absolutely. And this is not just for your healing. Think about if we use our energy for everything. If you want to have a successful life, you are going to need willpower. Start developing it by simply making a promise and keeping it. That's all it takes.
I would agree. All right, RJ, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. This has been fun for me. I hope it's fun for you. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. If anybody has any questions, suggestions, or recommendations for future chats, please leave the comments below. You can reach out to RJ. I will leave his contact and website and book link below as well. And I welcome him to share anything else that he wishes to share with you after we get off. I will also leave those links below. And thank you so much. I love you all very much. And I'm happy you're here. And I hope to see you all again very, very soon. RJ, thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Lorenzo. My pleasure.
Can't make me lie to my heart. No one tells me where I should start. Freedom first is what I say.